Okay, listen. This is an episode about the South, and it's a Southern state. We cannot curse in this episode.
I don't have a problem with that.
Really? You have a potty mouth.
I can refrain when needed.
Good. I mean, look, I will admit that I was the one who had to recut the Auburn episode first 30 seconds 75 times to get around myself using. I said, we're about to drop a lot of Auburn on your A.
Uh-huh.
And then I felt guilty because everybody there is so
Nobody
pleasant and
swears.
nice and gentle. Yeah.
Nobody swears in the South. Well, there are certain states that they do, but not in that part of Alabama we were in. Everyone is very prim and proper.
You could tell. We needed to wash the Florida off of us.
Oh, and the LA.
Yeah.
It was more LA that we need to wash off.
Definitely. But yeah, I'm not going to make that mistake again because I spent every time I watched it back.
Yeah.
I was like, there's something wrong here. There's something wrong here. And then I realized
it was you.
That something wrong is me. Yeah. So I'm going to be on my best behavior. Tell your mom and them. This is the Laurel, Mississippi episode. Get it.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey listeners, ever wonder what it would be like to blow up your comfort zone at the tender age of 50? Well, we did just that. When our last kid went off to college, we hit the road in search of a new hometown. Now we bounce from city to city and bring you along for the ride. This is the Skip Town All-Stars podcast.
Welcome back all. Oh, you're looking up at the ceiling.
Okay.
You ready?
I am.
Welcome back, All-Stars, to another great edition of Skip Town All-Stars. We are psyched to be coming to you from the cavernous living room of an empty house of our daughter in Corpus Christi.
I wonder if it's echoey, like if they can hear the echo, because there's no furniture here except for this card table and 2 chairs.
Yeah, that's literally all we have. And mattresses on floors.
Yeah,
At least we're
that.
not sleeping on an air mattress anymore.
That was really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I did not like it. You were fine with it, but I don't know how.
I was exhausted. What's the name of that movie? Where they go through different layers of consciousness?
Inception.
Yeah, Inception. I was like having Inception sleep.
You could have slept outside at that point.
I could have slept outside.
Yeah, the mattress is so uncomfortable.
The mosquitoes are hell here though, so I'm sure I would have woken up with a lot of welts on my face.
That would have been a sight.
I'm sure you would have gotten pleasure out of that.
That would have been funny.
At any rate, we're going to do our best here from this Home Depot fold-out table, and we are not talking about Corpus Christi today. We are talking about Laurel, Mississippi, stop number 2 en route to Texas.
Yep, we went to visit Laurel, Mississippi because, well, if you are an HGTV watcher, then you are very familiar with Laurel, Mississippi and a show called Hometown.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to see what all the hoopla was. And so we did. What put it on the map? We spoke to 2 locals, a couple that are from Laurel, went to college, came back to Laurel, and are raising a son there. They're both educators. And their son is 9. Do you want to talk a little bit about the history, that lesson that we got from them?
Yeah, but you're bearing the lead a little bit because Landon is actually Landon Talks on Instagram. He's got a gazillion followers. He has...
I was going to drop that. Okay, later. You just totally took my thunder. I had that. I'm so mad at you right now.
That. It's just way more sexy. Can I say sexy in a Southern podcast?
I don't think so.
I can't say sexy. No. It's much more
exciting.
Dazzling.
Okay.
I'm going to use the word dazzling.
All right, go on. You take my thunder about Landon.
Anyway, Landon and Kate were kind enough to meet with us and tell us all about their town. They did a car. They let us in their car. I couldn't believe it. With their child.
Uh-huh.
They didn't even know if we were mass murderers or anything.
They saw our Instagram. I think they realized we were fine.
Okay.
You are questionable. They knew I was quite all right.
They were like, well, they're a little corny, but they're not dangerous. So one of the benefits of having Landon with us, showing us around, is if you were to check out his Instagram page, you would know he is the de facto authority on all things Southern habits, Southern ways of speaking. Long story short, you had the blueprint of what would become actually a very pretty city. I went past, I think it's called Mason Memorial Park on the north side of town. It is gorgeous. I mean, I told Landon when we were there, I said, I imagine myself as a kid running through this thing and my mother pulling ticks out of my hair every night. So
You did.
it was really a very picturesque park, and it's not the only one. There are a couple over there. So even though you and I had the misfortune of having to stay on the other side, where all the hotels actually are, there are plenty of great sights to see and greenery and city planning on the other side of downtown.
Yeah,
Laurel,
and
Mississippi.
honestly, it was only 10 minutes from our hotel, so it's a quick drive. I think it's kind of amazing that they had the foresight to plan it the way they did. And even back then, we learned that for people who could only afford low income housing, which at the time wasn't considered low income, it's just poverty. That's all they called it back then. They built homes for them interspersed with the regular homes in the neighborhood, because their thought was they don't want people to feel like they look any different the way they live.
Yeah.
And they carry that to this day. So when Landon and Kate drove us around downtown Laurel, she would point to a house and say, that's Section 8, which there was no Section 8 back then, but that's Section 8, that's Section 8. You would never know. You would never know a Section 8 apartment from a, 4,000 square foot home. They were taken care of very well. And her and I had this whole discussion about it, because that's how you want it done. And I said to her, do the residents that live in the 4,000 square foot home next to the Section 8 apartment, do they squawk? Do you have issues? Are they at the city meetings talking about how they want Section 8 moved out of downtown Laurel and, to a different area? And she said, no. She said, it's always been like this. It will always be like this. We have those homes mixed in with regular houses for a reason, and nobody has squawked about it and nobody's tried to change it.
And everybody's super chill. Landon and Kate and people like them, what I presume is the millennial age bracket, all sort of made it a point to talk to other people their age. And all of a sudden in around, I think it was 2015 or something like that, he said, these kids, by our definition, started coming back to Laurel and trying to at least, fix up houses, bring people in.
Yeah.
And
I thought that was so fascinating, because when you live in a small town, just from being with you, the first thing that you told me was I couldn't wait to get out of the small town and experience a big city.
Yeah.
And Landon and Kate did express that people do leave, but people came back. And what was interesting to me, because I ask a lot of questions,
yes, you do.
I really wanted to know, how do you revive a city on decline? Because you need money. I mean, let's not gloss over. It takes money to revive it. And what was so interesting about Laurel, and I can't stop thinking about it, the founders of the town and people that came after them formed a committee called the Laurel Main Street Renovation Group. And all of these people started putting these old homes back together with boarded up windows, boarded up doors, overgrown grass. They just started literally brick by brick, going from house to house. And then what they would do is they would sell it. They would put it up on the market, make it pretty. And around that time, that's when Ben and Aaron from, hometown, they came on the scene around that time, maybe a little earlier. I think they were on the scene more like 2012. And they were one of the first people that took one of the lofts in the downtown area and redid it, because their father owned that building, or I think it was Aaron's dad, I believe, that owned that building, and it had just been sitting empty. So they redid the top loft. And if you read anything about them, they'll tell you they were the only ones living downtown. And then they brought their friends with them. And when we met with Landon and Kate, they talked about how people outside of Laurel started hearing a little bit about Laurel, like people from Hattiesburg and, friends of friends would say, you should really check out Laurel. But it's the money that the town put together, this group, Laurel Main Street Renovation Group. they started this. And then Aaron and Ben came in and just boom, blew it out of the water because they got an HGTV show and spotlighted Laurel. And then all of a sudden, you have people from all over the world coming to Laurel.
Okay, so let's not beat around the bush anymore. Could you live in Laurel?
Oh, 100%.
You could.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't seem that big a fan sometimes when we were there.
I was just tired of hearing about Ben and Aaron. I was a little jealous they have a TV show, but
that's
no.
really what it comes out. You're not a hater. You're just jealous.
A little bit. I was like, oh, who are these two? Anyway, they're two fabulous people.
Turns
clearly.
out they're pretty damn good.
They're pretty good. I could buy a house there, and I'll tell you why. The airport is an hour and 30 minutes away.
Mm-hmm. Jackson, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm. And if I wanted to go to Hattiesburg, it's 45 minutes, but it's like one of those towns you need a connector. Grocery stores are close. You could get an adorable house with a little piece of property. What I noticed is that, well, it's not real prevalent, but I think this is going to happen. Okay. I didn't notice it. I'm making this up, but I'm just going to tell you what I'm thinking. Okay. I totally made this up.
Wait.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you right now what I'm thinking.
This is a fact, but you're making it up, but you know that, but you're just going to give your
It's
opinion.
not a fact. Yeah. It's just an opinion.
Okay.
I do think.
I just want to be clear.
Yeah. I think there's opportunity to buy a piece of real estate and it be really a good investment in 5 years. Here's what I think. I think Laurel, Mississippi is going to turn into Fairhope, Alabama. You just need to give it 5 years, where it's this cute little town and people catch on and real estate starts going up. People are fixing up houses. So that little town starts going, like you get, 2 circles and you're like 2 miles out, then 5 miles out, then 10 miles out. The last day we were there, we met 4 people in 1 hour and 60 minutes that moved to Laurel because of the show.
Yep.
So one came from Michigan, one came from Vancouver Island, and one came from North Carolina, and one came from South Carolina. It was incredible, and all ages. The woman from Michigan was well into retirement age, so she had to be like 70 maybe.
Yep.
The woman that worked in the store was on the show. Her house got refurnished, and she came renovated. Her house got renovated, and she came to Laurel because of hometown, never anticipating her house being on the show, just thought it was lovely, wanted to visit it, and fell in love with it. Vancouver Island, and she was probably in her late 40s. Then the other 2 were really young girls, like in their late 20s, maybe early 30s. And I asked them, did you come here because of the show? And their answer was yes. And I thought, these are young girls moving there. But you know what? You can get a home. It's affordable.
It is.
Houses range from like, what was it? 325.
Some houses 200, depending on where and the size,
Oh.
but 200 to 400, 450.
You could go to 200. You just had to move a tiny bit further out. And when I say a little further out, I'm talking maybe a few blocks because the downtown area is so small. I'm not talking miles. So yes, because of all of that, because I see that it's growing, because I see that there's still room to grow a business there. Yeah. I would move there for all those reasons. Okay, they don't have public transportation, but you can walk everywhere. You don't need it. So it goes back to Savannah, Georgia. Like, we don't need public transportation. If we're going to live there, we can walk everywhere. The people are really, really nice. There's a sense of pride in the hometown. Who wouldn't want to live in a place like that? So I could live there, but what about you?
I could. And there's kind of an asterisk because it's weird. It's like, when we showed up in Opelika or Auburn, I was like, this community is great. There's just way more of a turnkey feel to moving to a place like Auburn or Savannah.
For sure.
Or like everything's sort of all built in. I would say I could live in Laurel, Mississippi, but my mindset going into it would be like, okay, time to roll up your sleeves. We got a lot of work ahead of us.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
100%.
And I'm not just talking like remodeling our house or whatever. I'm talking about like building a community. Now, the one thing that makes me feel really good about that is going back to your new friend from Canada in the store. She used a word there that really sort of set off in my mind something that I hadn't really considered in all of our travels. She said, there are the OGs, the people from Laurel. There are people who have come back to Laurel, and there's a whole expat community there.
She said that. I
She
forgot
said
about that.
expats and expats. I'm like butchering that word right now, but that made me think of, sort of these enclaves of, Americans living in a small town in Germany or something like that. And it actually rang a bell in my head because that's what we're going to be eventually when
It's
we
true.
pick our town,
Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
we need a community that's going to welcome people like us. And per this woman from Vancouver, she has found that there.
Mhm.
And
She
so it was strange. I mean, I didn't, especially the night we rolled in and the morning we woke up, I was not expecting to leave there, but with the wheels spinning in my head. But I have to say, I've thought about Laurel every day since we've been there.
Oh my gosh, you have not told me that.
I have.
What have you thought about?
There's just this, like, in terms of potential, it's like
It's huge.
every little wish list, like you throw out crazy fabricated baking company or whatever.
That's not crazy.
It's
I'm
not
gonna-
crazy. I know.
I'm gonna be.
I know you could totally start a baking company.
Uh-huh.
I don't think you would like it, but you would. You could. There's nothing to say you couldn't do it. I just don't think you would like it very much. But it's working in food. I mean, it's difficult. But the bottom line is there are so many storefronts there that are just like ripe for the picking.
It's true.
And so you have a community that'll support you, an organization that may actually help you get funds. You have your own house that now you're crazy about living in. And now you have the potential to start a business. My politics don't really agree with the state of Mississippi.
I
So
know,
that
mine-
would be a hitch. And Jackson is the closest airport and it's not far, but it's not a major hub.
No, and it's an hour and 30. So it's still further than I like to be. But
I'm good with an hour and 30, but it's still not like trying to fly out of Atlanta or something like
it's
that.
true.
So all that said, I mean, I mentioned it a little earlier. Like I went into a couple restaurants, like we went into another restaurant called The Loft or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's what the name. Yeah, the Loft.
The food was but I personally, you can do whatever you want because it's your show too. But I personally do not have a top and bottom five. My top five is basically the community, and that's just number one. And that's really all you need to know about Laurel. We've talked about it at length. I don't feel it's really fair to pick on some of these restaurants that we went into and coffee shops because let's face it, 5 years ago, there was nothing there.
It's true.
There was nothing there.
Yeah, it is very true.
So who am I to kick somebody who's starting out and trying to figure out their business and what works and what doesn't, what tastes good, what doesn't, you know what I mean? It's like,
we're not food critics. I mean, we just share.
Yeah, we just
our
hate stuff sometimes.
We do. And we'll put it on blast here.
I rave about places too, though.
And we do. And we put it on
Yeah.
blast here. I don't have a top or bottom. I thought the visit was great. And don't forget, if you're watching us on YouTube or want to hear Landon Bryan and his wife, Kate, definitely check out our episode called Ask a Local. And Landon, please look at his Instagram and TikTok. He's hysterical for all things Southern. You definitely want to look at his pages. It's really funny. You're going to learn a lot.
So the official Skip Town position is, if you got a problem with anything in Laurel, Mississippi, roll up your sleeves and get to work.
Well, you're the problem.
I am the problem.
No, meaning if you have a problem with it, you're the problem.
Oh, you're the problem.
No, you're the problem.
I know I'm the problem. I believe firmly, be a part of the problem, not the solution.
Oh, and you live by that. There's no question about it. You live by that.
Okay, take them out.
Empty nest, full tank.
We'll see you guys next week from Natchitoches, Louisiana.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.